for coming. In the past, we always have someone internal share their story. I have to say you are the first ever guest outside. Like basically, I run fitness family, so you are officially our family member.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah, first the thing I want to say, not everything on internet is true. This is what I heard about you. The first time you almost set a high school record, you run with tennis shoes and jeans. How did that happen? Is that true?
So not high school, but elementary school.
Oh, elementary school.
Elementary school. We had a fitness test every year for gym class, and over the years it became clear that I was one of the faster kids in school, but I didn't take it seriously. I didn't do anything special for it, and so my 6th grade year I showed up wearing tennis shoes and jeans and ran, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd fastest that year.
That's impressive. I was just thinking some kids like just regular shoes and jeans and almost set a record. Yeah, definitely you have a certain talent in you.
Yeah.
And my just want to talk about you. I know like you were like in high school, you were in running team, you joined the university afterwards, you came over here. Can you just maybe share with everyone your 3 success story and your 3 failures?
Oh, all right, put me on the spot here. So I'll break it down at the different stages of my running. I think it's something that I've always been a very active person as a kid. Played a lot of soccer, played Frisbee, did cross country skiing. All of my friends and I were always active. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska, which there really isn't anything else to do there other than being active. And so when I started running was as part of a school, part of the teams there. And so in middle school, I was part of a team, and that was a lot of fun. And then high school, it became a little bit more serious. And that would be probably where I first had my big success. Was I was part of a relay team that won a state championship. And that really not only opened up the door for me as an athlete, because I showed that I could run at a high level, but it also, for myself, it brought me closer to my teammates and showed me really how valuable sport can be, not only in challenging yourself, but bonding you with other people. And then, so that was probably the early stages of my running, and that first success story there. The next definitely would have been in college. I had my sophomore year, I had really made a transition in running and made it a year-round activity that I was really committed to. And with that came a lot of success. And so my sophomore year, I was again part of a relay team that finished second at a NCAA Division II championship competition, and I was also I also finished fourth individually in a different event, and that was the 1500 meters. And so that was probably my biggest competition phase, was in those college years. And then the third and most recent success story would definitely be the marathon and qualifying for the U.S. Olympic trials. So I moved to Vancouver in 2016 to be with my wife, who grew up here and was was starting her PhD at the time, and she and I got going into the running scene and connected with a lot of local runners. And I also, at that time, had started to think about chasing races on the road, so including the marathon. And I got excited about the idea of potentially qualifying for the U.S. trials, because I knew there was a standard for it. I knew that I was within the range of possibility of qualifying, but I knew it also would take a lot of hard work and dedication to it. And so it was from 2016 until April of 2019 that I spent a good amount of time focused on that challenge, but also focusing on making running as enjoyable as possible throughout that time. And I think that was probably the biggest thing that helped me be successful. Is I was focused on the goal, but if I had a bad workout, I didn't think the goal was going to be not achievable anymore. I was a little bit more mature, for lack of better words. And so in the spring of 2019, I ran the Eugene Marathon and hit the time standard of under 2 hours and 19 minutes. And that was just a phenomenal experience. And I was incredibly happy to be able to share that with so many of my friends who were there, either spectating or cheering or racing in the half marathon or other distances that day. And so those would be my three, I think, successes and how they kind of progressed over time.
Very impressive.
As far as failures, so before the marathon chase, I had definitely set out a lot of different goals over the course of my life. I wanted to break 4 minutes in the mile. I wanted to run at the track and field Olympic trials competition. I wanted to set a number of school records, both in high school and in college. And all of those didn't happen. And looking back on it, I think the biggest thing is I wrapped too much of my own identity up in them. And if things were going poorly, I took it very personally and was very worried about what was I doing wrong, rather than just seeing out the process and focusing on just chipping away at the training. And so when I say Eugene, I was more mature, I think I learned a lot in that process, and that is what actually allowed me to achieve those goals in the marathon. So, yeah, that would be my successes and failures.
It's I just found like as much as we can learn from people's success, we can also learn from people's failure. I listened to your podcast with Rob. I said, well, he did ask your success, but he never asked you what make you more successful. Obviously, there's always some failures. And one thing really struck me, it's there's two things really from what I learned about you. One is you said in order to qualify for U.S. Olympic trial, you prepared for a number of years. You did not prepare for 1 year. You prepare a number of years. And secondly, what really important is you said when you are running in Eugene last year around this time, you did not check your time until 20 miles. So basically you said that you just trust your body. So I want to ask you basically, how did you prepare something in 2 years? Like basically you have a goal in 2 years or 3 years. How did you divide into these 2 or 3 years? And secondly, how did you eventually trust your body without looking like I think we all look at our watch too often, too much.
Oh, for sure. That's something that I preach to all my athletes all the time. So yes, as far as the build itself and looking down the road, I'll start before that. I think all of my running experience in the past led me to be able to capitalize on that day. And so even though, yes, it was even a sub-cycle of 2 or 3 years to get to the marathon, I think a lot came from the years prior to that, whether it was fitness, whether it was experience, whether it was maturity, all those kinds of things all add up over the years. And so as far as the specific, very good. Oh, I see. As far as the specific block of training for that, I debuted in the marathon, which was kind of a funny story. I recognized at some point that I wanted to give it a go and I wanted to try and be competitive in it, but I was also getting older, for a runner. And so I decided I wanted to do it before I turned 30 years old. And so I just picked the race it happened to be the California International Marathon that was closest to my birthday of turning 30. And I said I was going to do it. And that experience went really well. And I was within 7 minutes of the standard, which is at that level, it's a decent chunk, but it was still within the reason of possibility. And that's where I really then started to think, okay, if I put some energy and some time into this, it's something that could happen. And from there, it really just became, all right, I'm going to take a couple of different attempts at this, find some races over the next few years where I know that I can potentially run fast. But I, at the same time, just focused on all the races in between, all the day-to-day training, and just enjoyed running and surrounded myself with people that also enjoyed running. And so it was never I'm waking up every morning with this goal that is 3 years down the road in mind. But it was definitely just keep getting out there, keep enjoying running, and knowing that I can build on the success. The second part of the question was not being more in tune with your body than with your devices. So again, that's something for Sacramento. When I did my first marathon, I had splits every 800 meters. And so my watch would buzz at me and I'd look at it. And over time, I recognized, over the couple of years there, I recognized that it was a feedback loop that I was using as something that would become more stressful than it would actually be advantageous. And through that time, I was also maturing, as I was saying, of learning that some workouts are just not going to be as good as others on paper, but your body's still going to absorb a lot of the work and condition itself appropriately. And so not to judge the workouts strictly based on the numbers at the end of it, but how your body felt going through the motions, and then as well as being able to recover afterwards. So throughout that time, I made this transition into paying less and less attention to my watch. And so as I did for workouts, I started to do that in races as well, where I would not look at what the last mile was. Yes, there's always going to be information that's out on course, and the marathon that I ran prior to Eugene, I was with the lead women in Berlin, and they had a car that was going right in front of us with a clock on it. And so I had no choice but to look at it. So, I mean, it's not like I did everything in my power not to look at it, but I just focused more on reading my internal signals. And so specifically in that build up to Eugene in that spring, so the race is in April, from January on, I raced a lot. And every time I raced, I did not look at my watch until I crossed the finish line. And I think doing that gave me a lot of confidence in my ability to read my body and what it was going to be able to give me on the given day. And I also think that just in general, when we're running hard, our natural instincts we should use those. And what I mean by that is a lot of us are running because it's a challenge, and it's a competition between the person next to us. And so if you can lean into that aspect of it rather than an artificial marker of how fast you're running, I think that allows, or at least for myself, worked a lot better as a motivator. If I could just focus on truly racing the person next to me, I didn't have to worry about winning the race, but just racing the person next to me, that allowed me to be much more in tune with my surroundings and the effort that I was putting out there. So, yeah, long-winded answer.
No, it's just impressive because in your mind you know you have to beat 2 hour 19 minutes, but in the meantime you're not even checking your watch until 20 miles.
Yeah.
It's not I don't have that in me.
But it's something that I think all of us can practice and all of us can work on. And I saw Eugene as an opportunity to run under 2:19, but I also wasn't going to judge that day entirely on whether I hit the standard or not. By the standard, or the judgment would come based on, did I lay forth an effort that I was proud of? Did I lay forth an effort that got the most out of me on that given day? And I think with that kind of mentality, you can really, you don't limit yourself, and you also don't stress about whether or not the outcome is going to be there, because you can be much more just focused on that process.
Trust the process. That's you always tell us. My last question relates to about the training. It's in Berlin you run 2:26, and in Eugene you run 2:18. So basically, in 7-8 months, you improved 7-8 minutes. You basically 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And what did you do? What did you adjust yourself after Berlin to basically improve 8 minutes? Because 8 minutes is quite a bit at your level.
Yeah. So I think you have to take a big step back on that question. Yes, did the end result, was that 8 minutes faster? Yes. But was the fitness that I exhibited on either day, or was the fitness that I was capable on either day, was that truly 8 minutes apart? Probably not. I had a bad experience in Berlin. I was aggressive early on in the race and ended up struggling. I think a lot of us have been in that place where you just start to fade hard and your body's shutting down. And so I still believe that on the day of the Berlin race, I was capable of running. I still think I was capable of running 2:18. It just, for whatever reason it didn't happen. And that's one of the things with the marathon, and big efforts like this, is that it's unfortunately only seldomly get the opportunity to prove that level of fitness, right? If you tried to run a marathon every day at the highest of levels, eventually your body's just going to shut down. And so I think it's it's important to keep in mind that it's performances in running are not going to ever be linear in progression. And I think over even the race that my debut race where I ran 2:26, I think I was capable of more that given day. And so with that in mind, I think it was just a certain level of confidence in myself and in knowing that if I put the work in, that eventually the results would be there. And that was part of also why I enjoy racing, and I raced a lot in the season up to the Eugene race, because each time you get out there, if you're going through the motions of racing, it's teaching you how to deal with it, but it's also putting that a little bit, it's putting a benchmark down and saying, okay, this is roughly where I'm at. And so with those data points, I was able to then say, okay, I should be confident in my ability to challenge the standard of 2:19. And so I think I just talked a little bit about not getting too caught up in the data, and I think that is really important, especially in the process of it. But having certain benchmarks, having certain points of reference over time is important. It's just not necessarily good to continuously judge yourself based on those, especially during races. And that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's thank you for your sharing. And now we are at a very special time. There's no group activity, run solo or with some social distance. I know you are a coach, you are a runner. How do you motivate your athletes? And is there any special virtual race you are going to recommend, ask people to do? I know Mile to Marathon has some virtual race for coming 3-4 months. Can you just talk to us about it?
Yeah. So the big message that I've been trying to share and trying to get at with my athletes and anybody that's in the running community that I have the opportunity to talk with is it's now is an interesting opportunity to take a step back and think about what really excites you about running. What are your core values of being part of this sport? If you like the idea of challenging yourself and pushing your limits to the utmost, yes, then races were a perfect way of doing that. Well, unfortunately, we can't race right now. So what are other ways that you can push your limits to the utmost in order to achieve that same type of satisfaction and enjoyment of the sport? For myself, running has always been something that's very social. I enjoy being able to get out with my friends, have shared stories of long runs that have gone terribly wrong, or we've gotten lost on adventures. And so that social component of it has always been really important for me. So knowing that, I've leaned into different social medias, whether it's Strava, whether even Instagram for my Strava art, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. But it's a way. I've found a way to connect with fellow runners and keep my level of excitement for what I'm doing at a all-time high. I also like the adventure side of it. I think some people purely like going out for a run, not knowing what's going to happen with it, and being surprised or just excited about being outside in a different environment. And so again, for that, there's yeah, there's opportunities to go out and explore new areas of running, whether that's new trails, new roads, those kinds of things. So fundamentally, I think right now the most important thing is take a second to recognize why you like this sport. Maybe that means taking a look back at why you started in the first place. And then if you can identify that, then take the details of, all right, these are some things that might target on that. These are some things that might help me achieve the same type of enjoyment while we are not able to do the races or the group workouts that we're used to. So that's my big pitch on what's going on right now and how to stay motivated.
So thank you. And that's a great segue. You talked about Instagram, your Strava arts.
Yeah.
I'm just going to present to everyone what you have done. I know you did more than these 4. So on the screen, I thought I was presenting. I know you have done more than these 4 Strava arts. You just picked up 4. One is for Easter.
Yeah.
One is for the, I think it's for BMO. One is for Mother's Day, and one is for Tiger King. Is that for Tiger King? Yeah, everyone's talking about Tiger King.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what to ask you. The stage is yours. You can talk about how did you come to this idea? How did you do it? I know one of the audience here, his name is Yu Xiang. He is probably the best artist in our running community. He definitely wants to hear how did you do it? What's your secret?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing is Strava art is definitely out there. There's a lot of people that do it. I think I've seen it over the years, and it's something that has excited me. But I've also often based all my running around other people, groups, etc. And so when I recognized the fact that I was going to be running by myself a lot, I thought, okay, what else can I do to make this run entertaining, something a little bit different? And that timing fell right around Easter, and I thought, okay, it'd be fun to do something to celebrate Easter. And so I came up with the idea of trying to map out an Easter bunny. And the other big point there is that I spend a lot of time on Strava. I spend a lot of time looking at maps. I look at Training Peaks is the platform that I use for my athletes. And I'll be looking at where they got to run, how the route looked, what kind of loop they might have done, those kinds of things. And so point is that I enjoy looking at that kind of information, the maps and the ways people run. And so when I thought about doing Strava art and that kind of thing, it was very natural for me to be able to see the lines in the road and see the different features that are out there. And so when I started to design these things, the biggest thing was taking the features that were already there. For example, the nose on the King, the Arbutus corridor. People run over and over and over again, and I've looked at it for years, and I said, you know what, that kind of looks like a nose, but maybe I'm alone in seeing that, but I think others do as well. And so it's taking and identifying some of those features and then building something out from that, and then also just trying to piece together something that's relevant and that gets people excited about it, right? It's a holiday, and so build out from there. As far as artistic skills and whatnot, I consider myself to be not very artistic. If you'd ask me to draw something, I feel like I would have drawn the same thing today as I would have when I was 3 years old. Like it looked terrible. And so I feel like in this case, all I'm doing is pulling the roads out of the map and presenting what is already there. Yeah, I don't know what else to really, yeah. Other questions on that, Luke?
Definitely. I think just a week ago, the running magazine I had article about you and your Strava. Basically, on the magazine said that you are the most creative runners. And afterwards, I Googled Strava arts. Some people did some great jobs, but what's amazing about your creation is you drew so many creative arts just in basically Vancouver, West Vancouver, right? And my immediate worry about is will Tony ever run out of image?
I mean, there's a lot of streets and a lot of roads and a lot of bike paths and whatnot in Vancouver, and so I think there is an infinite number of ways you can combine things. So yeah, it's just continuing to identify those unique features, right? Not just the normal grid of square blocks, but being able to find some of the curves and other things that you can use to really bring out the image, and then being able to build around that.
So in terms of tools, do you just use a Strava Arts? Do you use a Google Map? Are you also talking about the Training Peak?
Yeah, so primarily what I'll do is I will use the route builder feature within Strava, and again, I've seen all these roads, all these streets, paths, whatever, so many times before, and so if I see something, then I know. So I'll then use the route builder to start with whatever feature I think might look like something. So again, starting with the nose there of the king, and from there, just proportionally sizing things out and knowing that I can, just kind of fiddle around until something looks reasonably well. And so as long as you can tie together enough big features that really look like something, then the rest of the image comes together and people are able to recognize it. But yeah, it's a decent amount of time just fiddling around on the route builder feature and dragging the line back and forth. And then once I have it to a decent shape, that's when I will go out and I'll make sure certain parts of it that I can actually run there and that it's not just a closed road or a construction zone or something like that. And so I'll test it out a little bit before, but when I head out on the day that I'm going to actually do the piece, that's the first time that I complete the entire image.
And this is almost like you cannot make mistake because there's no way you say, okay, I drew a line too long, or I can go back to erase it. It's not like a painting. It's almost like a sculpture. Basically, you do it, that's it. So do you, I basically, do you follow some rules? I know your wife is always with you. Does she give you some direction?
Yeah, so the Easter Bunny I did pretty much off memory. So I mapped it out.
Really? Wow.
And because I run all those streets so frequently, I knew pretty much turn by turn where it went. So I had it all in my head. as the images have gotten more complex, I have started to write it out on a piece of paper and just making sure that I know, okay, turn at 7th Avenue instead of 9th Avenue, or whatever the small detail might be. Now, yes, Kate is on the bike next to me, and she does have a map of it. But I think, to my earlier point, like I've always felt very adventurous in running, and I like the navigating and that kind of stuff. And so using that, I guess, skill in the running and actually being able to process, okay, right now I'm going around the eye, or right now I am painting out this flower. And so I definitely have, I definitely pay attention to what I'm doing, and not just, oh yeah, turn left, turn right, turn left, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think there's always a little bit of a worry of like, oh, going the wrong way on something. As a matter of fact, last weekend, the second turn I was supposed to take, I was probably still asleep. I missed it, and so I had to restart, which, I mean, I had to run an extra 3 minutes. It wasn't a big deal. I'm just glad I didn't do that at mile 10 or kilometer 16. So, yeah, I mean, it's fun, it's engaging, and it gives you a purpose for the run. And part of it too is I like doing them as part of my long run. So there's enough time and enough distance to make some detail and to keep them exciting.
Yeah, I know definitely. Every Sunday, I'm just looking at my Strava. I said, what's Tony's artwork today? That's great. Now we want to come to the show and tell time.
Okay.
I know. Maybe do you want to tell us how did you get that pairs of shoes? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I have them here because you told me to bring them. A pair of the Alphaflys. They were at the U.S. Olympic trials for the marathon. They were giving these away to anybody that was participating. And a lot of people wore them in the race. I personally didn't, because I listened to my own advice of not wearing a new pair of shoes for the first time in a race. But since then, I have used them for a number of workouts and runs. And personally, I think, yeah, they're an upgrade from the previous model, from the Next Percent. One of the features I personally like about them is the toe box is a little bit wider. The other ones always kind of were really narrow on my forefoot, but that's my foot. As far as the advancement, it seems to be drastic. I mean, you feel even higher off the ground. They feel like you get even better return. It's pretty amazing. As far as my take on the whole shoe technology in the battle there, yeah, I mean, I start to go down a road of concern. Where are the limits, that kind of thing. But at the same time, yeah, technology always advances. And so as long as it's true to our sport, I'm okay with it. I don't know if I've made a full judgment on where these lie on that spectrum, but they definitely feel nice to run in. There's no lying there. So.
Yeah, I think you are the probably first person in Vancouver, if not in Canada, got a pair of these Nike shoes.
Yeah, I wonder. I assume there's a few others that have them out there, but because they've been amongst the elites or within like Nike
Nike sponsor
and that kind of thing. Like they've tested these things quite a bit, and so that was something that was a little bit concerning going into trials, is that the shoe would capture more of the story than the individual runner. But I mean, fortunately, if you look at the men's and women's races, it wasn't a clean sweep by Nike athletes by any means. And so, and yeah, now unfortunately, or whatever, like a lot of the storylines from that have been diminished just by the fact that we are no longer racing.
Okay, that's great. And I saw already people started asking questions. I also got some questions ahead before this meeting.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you some questions. The first question coming from a seasoned runner. He said, how do you warm up for 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon, respectively?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I like to keep it simple, and my warm-up routine for all of those is gonna be pretty similar. Now, the biggest difference is depending on the length of the race. It might have a little bit shorter or longer warm-up. So for 5K, it's probably going to be my longest warm-up, especially relative to the race. But it's still probably not going to be more than 20 minutes of easy running, doing some drills, doing some strides, just getting my body loose. For a marathon, it's probably down to 5 to 10 minutes of easy running, and still going through those same drills and strides type motions. The most important thing for me as far as warm-up goes is having a routine that you're comfortable with and that you can easily execute. And so what I mean by that is knowing, all right, 45 minutes before the start is when I'm going to head out the door. I know that I'm going to run first, then I'm going to find a washroom, find my water bottle, going to change my clothes or whatever, and I'm going to do my drills and strides, and then I'm going to have a little bit of last minute water before I head to the start line. And so the more natural that everything becomes on race day, the more comfortable you are, and the more you're able to just relax. There's enough stimulus, there's enough nerves that's going on race day. Don't try to overcomplicate it by thinking, oh, I have to do this perfect routine, and I have to do exactly what I have to do exactly these steps in order to run the fastest. No, it's really about just finding something that you know works for you, practicing it time and time again. I think one of the big things that I preach to a lot of my athletes is let's do races frequently, because the more times you go through the motions, the more comfortable you are. And so it's same thing with the warm-up. The more times you warm up for a race, the more prepared you'll be come your goal race day. And yeah, I think that's my big key on warming up for races.
Thank you. And I'm going to combine someone else's second and third question together. It's what kind of cross training do you do regularly? And also during the race, what kind of supplemental drink and food work for your recovery? And also, is a BCAA, it's a kind of supplement good for running?
Sorry, can you repeat the first part of that question?
First one is cross training.
Right. So I'll just jump into cross training. I don't do a whole lot. When I have injury issues, I definitely will spend some time aqua jogging. I will occasionally jump on the bike, that kind of thing. Especially when I've been injured in times when I've been very focused on it, then aqua jogging becomes my go-to. And I think partly because it's the most similar to running. And even though I don't like swimming, I don't like being in the pool, it's still it's still my favorite activity as far as cross training goes. I do try to do good regular strength routines. I think it's something that I missed out on when I was younger. And so it doesn't feel as natural, but over the years, I've recognized how important it is, and not only to help you be more powerful, but to become more resilient and avoid as many injury issues. So I think as far as cross training goes, strength is the biggest key, and then just finding the activity. If you need to do additional aerobic work, finding the activity that you enjoy the most.
Sure. And the next one is food and drink. We know, based on the knowledge, you like chicken and rice before the race.
Yeah.
And after race for recovery, normally what kind of food, supplements? It's BCAA. Any comment about it?
Yeah. I generally am not too picky about things. I think that I think as far as picking, my biggest thing with nutrition is just having a good, well-balanced diet all the way around. I think that's where you find the lowest hanging fruit. If you are taking care of your meals 3 times a day, you're eating well-balanced meals multiple times a day, that kind of thing, and that's the foundation of taking care of your nutrition. And so that is the most important thing for me, is to focus on that. Then sure, I take a multivitamin, I take vitamin D, just kind of to kind of top things up. And then as far as race day nutrition goes, I just kind of find what works. I have used Morton quite a bit lately. That seems to sit well in my stomach. I know for some people it doesn't work. It's again about being comfortable with what you're working with. And so the same thing about your pre-race routine. That should include in the nutrition. If you don't like a gel product, there's no reason that you need to take it to think that that's going to make you have the best race. It's finding something that you enjoy, and it's something that works for you. And then as far as recovery afterwards, I think the biggest key is just timing, just getting something in shortly after, and making sure that you start the recovery process. I think the worst thing that you can do is to lag out the fueling afterwards, because your body is continually run down, and the longer you are in that state, the longer it's going to take to fully recover. And so whenever I finish a run, I'll come inside and grab a banana or grab a piece of fruit and just start that recovery process. And then as long as you're following basic lines of, you want to replenish your carbohydrates, you want to replenish, you want to have protein with those early meals, right? To help rebuild your muscles. I think that's all that's really important. I think you can certainly get into overcomplicating it.
Okay, Thank you. And online, there's one question said, can you tell us a little bit more about your training program?
So training program, as far as what I personally am doing, I think.
I believe so. This is a question from Li Liang.
Yeah. I think my training program isn't typical for a lot of marathoners. I have had a number of injury issues over the years, and so the volume of work that I have been able to withstand hasn't been as high. And so in the lead up to Eugene, I probably averaged 80 to maybe 85 miles a week, and that doesn't compare to a lot, right? A lot of people will at this level will be running 100, 120 miles a week. But I leaned more on the fact that I did more quality sessions, and made sure that I had the background of all the intensity work that I've done over the years. And so I think finding a good balance of what works for you is really important there. Don't force the training just because that's what worked for somebody else. So, but to address it specifically, I mean, like I said, I probably averaged around 80 miles a week. I was doing one longer workout each week, where anywhere up to 45 to an hour worth of quality work, and then another workout with more just focused on efficiency and short, faster running. So that could be 400-meter repeats. That could have been 30-second hill strides. Things like that, I think, are really important in developing your top end speed. And that is something that I preach throughout my coaching, is that in order to run faster, you have to be capable of running faster. And so often we think that, we just need to pile on more volume. We just need to train more. Yes, that's advantageous, but that it does put a ceiling on you. And so being able to really challenge how fast your body can move and how efficiently it can move quickly, that will have big improvements in your ability to run fast over any distance, whether that's over the marathon distance, whether that's over a 5K. That's all really, really important.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And I got another question who someone emailed me earlier, said he mentioned that it's a super long run, very important for marathon training. I believe when he talked about the super long run, he's talking about, I know some people running even 50K for marathon training.
Yeah.
Someone said that you need to train 42K. If you do not run 42K, how do you know you can run 42K?
Right.
I believe he's talking about anything over 35K. Right. I know you use mile. Typically, we use a K.
Yeah. Sorry. So I think, to the point that I just made, I don't think it's as important. I think that it's more important to be able to run fast and to be able to run efficiently. With that said, I recently looked back at my training for Eugene, and I did have, I think I have it noted here. I had 18 trainings. No. I had 14 long runs of 30K or more in an 18-week cycle. And so that's pretty much every three out of every 4 weeks I was doing 30 plus K. Now, I think stacking those up over time is what allows your body to tolerate running for that period of time. I think that the biggest thing for being able to tolerate the distance is just putting the workload on your body and being able to go out for a long run after you've run already 3 or 4 times that week or more. And so on that day, you will be able to channel all the training that you've done from the months of work in advance. And so with all that said, I think if it brings you a lot of confidence to say, okay, I know that I can do this, then I think that's important. And so I think that's a big part of any training plan or program, is being confident in it and being confident in what you've done, because that will allow you to get to the start line and say, you know what, I can do this. I'll be ready to run fast over that given distance. And so, yeah, I think that kind of is my answer on all that.
So basically, should people run 40K, 50K? It really depends on this person's training schedule. We look at holistically, not just to say
right.
one of them.
And I think the first key really should be developing the speed, developing your efficiency of running. I think that before anything else, that is the important thing. And then if you want to add in the longer and longer runs, that I think comes secondary.
Okay. And just curious, what's your longest run in those 14 long runs over 30K? What's your longest run?
I think I got to 36 or 37. Yeah.
K, not mile, right?
Okay.
Okay. It's got another question online. Just said that you mentioned about doing some drills and strides before going out for a run. He is just curious what are those drills are.
Yeah. I mean, basic running movements, right? So your knee drive type exercises. So a lot of people refer to them as A skips or A marches, right? Where you're focused on knee drive. Doing some butt kick type exercises where you're engaging your hamstrings. Anything that really, the idea is that it's teaching your body how to move properly. Or reminding it how to move properly. And so for myself, I'll do A skips or A marches, B skips where similar, but you get a little bit of hamstring engagement as well. Butt kicks. I'll do some basic just skipping where you're trying to, just generate some energy off the ground. And then I do also like to try and activate the hips a bit. So that means doing some sideways skips, doing some karaoke where you're crossing the leg over, those kinds of things. And then strides are just, the short accelerations, anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds and taking a little bit of a break and catching your breath and going again. And again, I'd like to do the strides after the drills. The drills are there to, like I said, program how the body is supposed to move, and then you immediately implement that with the strides as that reminder of like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to run quickly.
Yeah, being in mile to marathon, I'm used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if anyone has any more questions. I know we just Tony is quite busy. This is a long weekend for everyone. I don't think there's any other questions. And probably just, I know you have been coaching in university in Alaska. Now you are coaching athletes. You probably see some commonality. Do you have any parting advice to all the runners here?
Yeah, I think if you've listened to all of this, you've kind of got my theme of enjoy running for what it is, and remember why it is that you're out there. And with that, it allows you to build something that is sustainable, and something that you can do for years, because that is what will eventually lead you to success. And I think that's a way to live life in general, but I think it applies in running as much as anything. And so, yeah, always focus on the enjoyment of it, and know that the hard work comes along with that.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful. Almost reminds me of the Kipchoge. Always give you some life lesson. That was fun. You know, I have known you for 2-3 years. This is probably first time just knowing you intimately, just from your elementary school until now. Thank you, Tony, and hope we can do this again in sometime in the future, if that interests you.
For sure, it was fun, and always good to share a story, and provide and continue to get people excited about running. That's the biggest thing that I try to do with not only my own running, but with the coaching, and it's something that has provided me with a lot of cool opportunities and a lot of joy within my life. And so my biggest goal is to continue to share that and help people see what's possible with the sport.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you again for your time and also advice. Good luck to you tomorrow. I'm sure there's another piece of art coming tomorrow, and good.
There is, and for anybody that's still listening, we may even be able to follow along online. So if you follow me on Instagram, pay attention for the opportunity to look for to live track the drawing.
And in the future, if one day you are thinking about group join, we love to be part of it, because I was thinking it would be really cool. For example, if you can draw the head, we have 20-30 people all join the mustache.
Yeah.
Just an idea out there, right?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you
Luke.
again. Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming and for your time. Happy running.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone.